Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 28th of August 2025 and I've got you here on what I'm of a mind is the tail of this big object coming in at the moment. It's pretty, there's a lot going on right now, but I want to, many of you saw the many of you might have seen the, where was it? Have I got it up on the earthquake that occurred? When did it occur? It occurred on the 22nd of August. And I just want to bring you to the date, the moons, because in the last video, I don't know whether to start on the astronomical model or just to come straight into the, let's just go to the 22nd of August for a shake. Where is it? 16th, 23rd of August. So 22nd, 23rd, you can see the new moon, right basically on the new moon, that big earthquake. And I'd said in my last video that it was going to, do you remember we got this time to the neat moon, the first quarter neat moon before, on the 1st of August, right at the end of July, beginning of August, the massive 8.8 earthquake in the Kamchatka Peninsula and the tsunami, exactly where I said the tsunami would occur, exactly where I said it would occur in the northern hemisphere on the first moon. And we're going to come to the astronomical model, and I said if it's happened there, it's because it's heading in. I'm going to show you what I mean in the astronomical model, but that's a massive thing to predict, that the oceans are going to rise up at that specific time on that first quarter, just like the first quarter moon when Fukushima happened, on that first quarter moon, just like the first quarter moon, as I keep saying, when the either 8 or 8.0 earthquake occurred in, I think it was May in 2008, and like I showed in, I always show in my model, is I discovered that through the model. I found that specific earthquake using my model, ironically, and it happened well, as I'm going to demonstrate, on the first neat moon in the cycle, and I can't remember the exact date. It was like, I think it was May the 12th, but actually I might be completely wrong on that. But certainly the Sichuan earthquake, the big Sichuan earthquake, specifically, coming up or just very, very close, or even right on the first quarter, the neat moon, and it's very specific. So I said it would occur on that day, and it would be an indication of where it is, that it was coming in, getting closer towards the Earth. And so I was predicting that the next, the 31st of August would be the next big, depending on how close it was going to get to, if it got closer to the new moon, then once it's at the new moon, it's not gone past us, affecting the last quarter, the third quarter moon. It's the first quarter when it's coming in, and that first quarter moon, as it comes in, if it's still on this side of the Earth and hasn't passed the Earth, once it's right next to the Earth, if the earthquake occurs directly on the new moon, then you're completely alignment. The Earth, the moon, the object, and the sun, or a massive alignment that is, and that's what we had in my mind, when the earthquake occurred on the 22nd of August here. And like I said, I'm going to show you the astronomical model, but that means that the object is right where it's passing us. It's right in between. We're all in alignment. It's in the northern hemisphere. It's not directly on a line. It's further in the northern hemisphere, which means that we are now looking, instead of the first quarter moon, because we're seeing it in the new moon stage, it's not going to affect us the first quarter. It's going to be the next. It's going to be the third quarter, which is the third quarter in the row, is going to be somewhere between the 14th of September and the 21st of September. but more like the 14th, 15th, 16th kind of ratio, just by the pattern of what we're seeing and watching it go by and being able to predict these seismic events. And I've been doing it for a long time. Ironically, it is ironic, you know what I mean? But it was another object, and there's 4, if not 5 objects that are coming in off this big dwarf planet, and we're going to talk about this new, whether it's a comet, whether it's a planet, Atlas or whatever they're going to call it. I'm just going to bring up. Well, I'll come to that we're going to come to that after, because we're dealing with a completely different object right now. Then we're going to meet in late November. We have the moons of a big system that are coming in. We've effectively been getting, if there's 4 objects, then that's 4 objects coming in and 4 objects going out, which is effectively 8 flybys, more or less every effectively for its movements, it would be every sorry to be so technical, every 396 days. And imagine that, 10 flybys every 396 days. Coming in and going out. The comings in for 4, if that's working on the assumption that that there's 4 objects. Imagine if there's 5, and there could very possibly, in one of my models, I call the big object all these objects orbit Pluto, as many of you well know, and of course it has 5 moons. The last one. That I name, ironically, Herculobis and Charon. It is Charon. I name them in this model. I name them after. I call this model. You can't see it because it's up here, but this is where they're all coming from. And this system is so close to our sun that the objects are coming in and they're going round. So our sun is orbiting whatever you want to call it, planet X or something, a black hole, whatever our sun orbits. This object over here also orbits the same primary as our sun orbits, and our sun effectively takes 1800 years to do 6 cycles. And this object, whether you want to call it Pluto, whether you want to call it Uranus, whether you want to call it Jupiter, whether you want to call it Neptune, whether you want to call it Pluto, whether you want to call it the blue Kachina, whether you want to call it the red Kachina, they're all one and the same things, so to speak. It's a big system that's been thrown over us to blind us from our cosmic direction and where we're truly going. And so if we come to, because this model doesn't go up to 2025, I have to go back to when, because this is a cyclic pattern that once I've established these patterns, they just repeated. You know what I mean? So I'm not messing around, if you like, with the timelines. I'm just laying them in sequential order. These are like digital orreries. Imagine these are just cogs, and they just go round and around and around. And they're just for me, for my research in looking up and down the timelines, they're like orbital planetary calculators. They are orbital planetary calculators. They're calculators set for the rotation of the cycles that we have here, so we can get a window of where these might have been X, Y at different times, and start piecing together a kind of a notion of how our solar system could work if it wasn't a heliocentric model that we're looking at it. And it's very difficult to arrange the planets in such a way as to find those anomalies. But because this model only goes up to about 2000, not much further than 2020, I have to go back to the previous sightings. So we saw in 2011. I'm going to race through loads of stuff here, but I talk about the big earthquake that occurred in in February 2010, on the 27th of February 2010, and then we go 1 year and 13 days later, and we came to 2011, March the 11th, 2011, and then we've got to go another 2 years, and we start noticing, as I said before in my last video, that we go around to the same thing, and not one more year, and we notice how these objects are racing. Notice how these objects are racing further forward. As I discussed in my last video as well, we're kind of more going this direction, and these objects are actually going much more in this direction. So they appear to go much faster than us as they cut across. But when we get back up to 2013, and you see Earth coming around on this blue track here, and this object here, which I call Kerberos in this model, named after the moons of Pluto, coming past us again. So we're getting 2 points of synchronization. They cross here, but in 2010 and 11, but they cross here, ironically, 2 years later to sync up again. And in reality, they're not going out this direction. This model was incorrect. They're actually going all the way round and coming out somewhere over here in the kind of like, they exit, in my opinion, round about the September, October position, kind of October, which is why I believe that the Calvin looking for Hobbes got the most incredible shot of this specific object that we're talking about here on the 15th of it was 15th of October 2020, which is an incredible shot. It's not on this one, not on this model, but nonetheless, I will show you on this other model is that this model was so it became more. This is my last model, and it's more incorrect than the previous actually, because I've made lots and lots of mistakes. But nonetheless, it does kind of. I think some of the aspects of it were certainly my predicting of this big object with which, you know, like I say, the Guardian readers were calling it the kind of the earthquake cloud, because it was seen over kind of Turkey. Both were, and both came with massive earthquakes. And of course, there, as I often discuss, you know, that was this object that's going to affect us in November, caught by Nick Thomas in 2000, July the 9th, 9th of July 2020. That's relevant for but later in the video. But the specific shot is a completely different object, seen just months later, and this is the same specific object that is affecting us now, seen in October on its exit, going out on its exit strategy. And so that's very close to its final exit, for its final, and then we've been seeing it subsequently earlier and earlier. And so has it gone past us? I don't know, but where was I going with that? Where I was going, yeah, these ones I'd predicted, and unfortunately this model then falls apart when you come up to 2025, and you'll notice here, where are they? Kerberos is just coming in. It's done a full rotation, and it's coming in on this side, and that is because I'd got these two the wrong way around. In the last model, the sun is on the inside, and whether you want to call it Pluto, and here I call it Herculobus, which is what Carlos Ferrada called it in 1939 when he predicted the big earthquake on the 20th of January 1939, which is critical in this timeline, which is a critical part of how I've built so much of this and opened this up, and so many of his predictions are laid over the top of this. And oh my goodness me. Anyway, I got those the wrong way round, and so you can't see the syncing up of that, but you can kind of see it in 2013 here, where you see here Kerberos going out here and Earth running across here. In reality, like I say, it's cutting across us on the inside. Now, let me just get a better view of that. Unfortunately, I can try maybe zooming in on that when I edit the video. Maybe if I just hold it there, and then I'll hopefully I'll zoom in on that a little bit, and then as I'm describing it, so the moon's obviously going around in this direction, and when we come to so that would be the new moon. This would be the first quarter moon. This would be the full moon, where it's reflecting the light back, but the sun of the back onto Earth, where we can see the whole sun and it's fully the moon and it's fully illuminated. And then the third or the last quarter moon, the third quarter moon here, and then back to the new moon. So you can imagine that if this object is running parallel with us, and then it reaches this point here, it's pulling the moon up here on this side, on the first neat moon. It's because it's coming around, it locks in. This is its kind of pivot point on this kind of axial pivot point. So it can rise up here and drop down here. But in this case, it's gone past us in the northern hemisphere. It's reached this point, and by the time the moon is coming to this point now, and then it's going to go round to the full moon, and then it's going to go into the last quarter neap. This object, if it carries on going, is going to start pulling the object up into the northern hemisphere at this point. I would imagine that the way things are going, that the earthquake happening directly on that alignment. You know, so much of this has been. I watched so much about the moons because you remember the 2004 earthquake that happened on Boxing Day. Happened either on the new or the full moon, and you'll notice that a lot of the other big events, certainly Carlos Ferrada's big prediction, on the 20th or the 24th of January 1939, he came on the full or the new moon, and ironically, one of the previous tsunami kind of oceanic anomaly I predicted, which was a specific day. I said that you can't tell me there's not going to be oceanic anomalies in 2018, which is in my video, and it was just like, and the Earth and it was ironically September, but a different object, and the earthquake happened either on the full or the new moon, and so when it's in its exact alignment, and the alignments seem to occur much more on the side of, if you like, in this case I put it over here, Pluto over here, but in reality the object's over here. But when the objects are returning back over here, they seem to much more occur. They very rarely happen on the neat moons. They're much more focused around which I think is all to do with the proximity of the primary they're really orbiting. Obviously I've got a million different ideas and theories there, but that's probably the closest to it. But nonetheless, you're in it. So Stephen Burns just made a video, so we're going to conclude that. That's where I think it's going to happen. And apologies if you've been preparing for this first neat moon, but like I did say it's going to be somewhere between the new and it happened right on the new. So it is what it is. We're just charting this as it goes along. But Stephen Burns recently made a video. Sorry, did I just see it? UK weather. Oh, this was it here.
The 360 light and its important features. 3 buttons. First is with 5 different. Going to behave like.
And he's talking about. I can't remember what he calls this. Oh, there it is. 3-eye atlas. 3-eye atlas. And he talks about it being half the size of the sun, has it entered our solar system and is going to come, and the other talks are talking about kind of like early December, that this object is going to pass us, and this model is better to show you, but I'd have to go back to 2016, because you have you'd have the same object that caused the 2004. So I call it Hydra in this. You could call it Jupiter. You could call it Pluto. You could call it the big blue object itself that orbits the big red object, the blue Kachina and the red Kachina. And for a long time I could never even conceive or believe that such an object could come in from another system and go right around our sun. But I tell you, the evidence is overwhelming. The shots are absolutely fantastic, and the predictability. And this is the only way I've ever, with all the thousands of shots that I've been working with over the years, the model that I've got here is probably the closest still to all the models that I've built. And there's massive corrections. I so want to build this. And yeah, well, I'm going to ask for some help, if you don't mind, at the end of this video. You might not want to stick around for that, but just get the information. That's the most important thing. So anyway, so I've got to come to the 2004, 2000, and this will come around every 12 years and meet up at this same point every 12 years. But there's also a point where it exits, and notice I've got it coming out across, going clean across. I was so wrong. It goes all the way around and it comes back out from whence it came, and I've been chartering it ever since May the 4th 2018, when I was first discovering it, and I was starting to realise that it's coming up to its kind of probably July, August exit kind of point. I had no idea that I was completely wrong, that it was going to carry on going round. And those who've watched me all these years chartering, you've watched me chartering this from 2018, and we've seen all the seismology. We've seen what we're coming into now that's being caused by this specific object that's coming in now. But we've seen the big blue one coming round doing the same thing, creating the same superstorm. So we're getting a rerun of so much we've already seen in the builder. A smaller object, but much closer to us. Made of what I'm assuming is very dense material itself. And then you've got this big object that I'm talking about here, the blue Kachina now, that in 2004 crossed us and caused that massive tsunami. And then its exit, you've got to think about, it's kind of like crossing, going around our sun and coming back out. In my mind, it's the logic of it, because the way I've charted it, if it comes out, if its exit strategy, instead of coming out over here, it just carries on going round, and it comes out in. I've been charting it. We saw we certainly saw it there in June in 2023. That was on the golf course. That was a massive match, and the cameraman is kind of like, the commentator is just having to kind of like, what is that cloud? Endless shots of it, massive volumes of. But that was the shot I was going to show. That was in 2000. That was November 2022. That's what I'm of a mind we're coming round to, except that this object in the centre is going to be much closer to us. Because I was showing you the Nick Thomas shot on. Is it on this one? Oh yeah, that was the shot. That the same on the same shot that. Ironically, because just recently it was an absolute. I know it was an absolute error, because World of Science posted this shot recently, thinking it was a recent shot. And he's he's really on the button. And I just and I mentioned it in the comments. I said, I think you'll find that that's going to be that shot from, but he's pretty right on with. He's pretty. I'm a keen follower of World of Science. He puts a massive amount of effort into his work, and I was just watching the other day, the December time, 2023. It was such a magnificent time, looking at one of his old videos from the past, and certainly using my models and going back and using these people's data to kind of have a look at the past and start building your own ideas and your own timelines, because this might trigger true for you in some way. You might like the patterns and the way I've put this together, but this is a way of showing the patterns in a flowing motion. That doesn't mean this is the way it is, and my model has constantly changed and developed all the way through this. And I've made big mistakes like these. There's a massive mistake in this when it's such a tragedy, but nonetheless there was enormous discoveries that were made when I made this model in terms of working out the forward direction of our sun, which I'd been trying to triangulate for years and years and years. And when I'd finally worked it out because of building these models, so much other stuff, and so then you realise, oh, I made this mistake and that mistake. But hopefully in sharing all of this, it is kind of like, it is a learning experience. But you know, coming back to the November time, isn't it funny that Comet, this model wasn't, it shows that shot, but actually we'd have to go back to, this model is not accurate to show the flyby I kind of mean. I think it's still more going to be, this one, none of my shots really accurately show the exit. You can see the mathematics of it. But if 2004, if 2004, right at the end of 2004, what was it, 26th of December 2004, when the earthquake and tsunami happened, you go exactly 12 years forward, what we would see as Jupiter, and well, if you go 12 years, hang on, no, let's go 3 quarters of Jupiter's orbit in years, which would be 9 years. So 9 years from 2000, and that's giving 3 years. Once it crosses our path, and it has to go link all the way around the object and come back, which we're assuming it has to accelerate for. I've got, like I say, the object is orbiting over here, but there's, I've got, there's errors and connections. But imagine, however you see it, it's gonna, once it crosses our path and it goes all the way around, and then it comes back again, and it goes around the object it's orbiting, a much denser object, and it travels much faster around that object and shoots around the other side. That's giving it 1/3. That's 1/3. 1/4 of its orbit is occupying this point, and 3/4 around this much bigger cycle. With working from the 2004 to its exit point, and from whence it comes around again. And so for us, when it came round again, was in 2016. So we come to 2016. And then that's where we get the massive, the plate, the big earthquake in right down in the south, New Zealand. And Christchurch, whatever, and then obviously another big earthquake in Fukushima at the same time, and you'll notice the object is crossing again. There's Earth coming around, and the object is coming very close in, and but the exit, like I say, if we have to mathematically work that out, we have to say. Because we can see evidence of it, I can show you evidence of it, but just kind of like 2016 plus 9 years is 2016, 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. You can't go using this. If this model is right, you can't go further than that realistically, or this, you just can't go further than that. And even that might be pushing the boundaries of feasibility, in that we might have missed the exit trajectory of this already. It might have done its passage and not get too close to us at this point. Somehow, I just don't think. But I think that the next quarter moon. The next last quarter moon, which is about the 14th, 15th of September, is going to be a time to be really, really, really aware. If I live in, right now I'm making this video on the levels in Glastonbury, the lowest point, the biggest tsunami point in Western Europe, kind of bottleneck between Wales on one side and Cornwall on the other, and the water just bottlenecks in between. It comes in from a big tsunami coming in from the Atlantic, and ironically, that time is going to be kind of like, I told my dad it was going to be interesting around the 15th, and he said, "Oh, it's Spitfire Day," because he loves his Spitfires and all that sort of stuff, and the Battle of Britain Day, and it's so interesting, isn't it, that it is we're coming into now, and the stance that Britain is taking, and the way this is all politically playing out. I'm not going to get too much into that now, other than to say that Trump seeming to pull out at the moment is it's all being seen as an exercise to kind of lure Europe to take the bait and go in and start a war that it will never be able to finish. It will be, and I predicted all of this in my book, that this would happen, that this would be when America pulls out at the last minute, and then the whole thing is lined up, so Europe is fed into this massive war, but then Europe sees what's going on. It realizes that it's just being played. There's no one that can win in this. It's all just dead man hands. At this stage, with this level of technology, the best thing you can do is just get on with your neighbors and sort it out, and rise to a whole new way of being and doing things, and a whole new, if we've got to come out of these fiat-based currencies, it's got to be real valuable back onto the table, and we've got to go for a bit of an uncomfortable readjustment, and it's going to be we're heading into difficult times. But if we had a currency crash and things went a bit wobbly and everything fell apart, honestly, it would be great difficulty, but we would bring it back together again. It's not the end of the world. It's not something that we need to destroy the world over for these big corrections. What we need to do is work out ways to get through them, and without going into all-out nuclear heck, and sort these things out peacefully, and so it can be seen that Trump's pulling out of this, and he doesn't want anything to do with this. But I'm of a mind that we've got to be so careful that this is not just drawing Europe to take up where Russia falls short, and suddenly everyone who's anti-Trump is just suddenly pro-Ukraine and gets drawn into it. And that's what I'm of a mind is happening, that this is a big show. This is a very big show. So, honey in the heart, 1,000 thank yous for following me this time. Listen, I will say I am absolutely brassy at the moment. Things are tougher than they've ever been, and big thank you for all those who've helped me all the way through this. And I'm so sorry, I'm so crap with all my thank yous and everything else like that. If I'm honest with you, I would have never ever believed in all my life that it would put me under so much pressure to put dates. What it does to put dates on these things. How much you put off yourself when you put a date on something, and what it does to you on a karmic level, putting that out there. It's a massive thing, and so it massively shuts me down. It makes communication and certain things very, very difficult for me, more difficult than I can ever believe, because I poked my head out of a parapet that I knew that I was doing. I did it consciously, but though I'd often thought I could deal with it, I had no idea of the weights that I would carry doing what I'm doing and saying what I'm saying, and the way it affects me. And so I'm but there will be, like I say, I've always said for this, there will be a time of big then we'll get past this. We're all here to get past this. This has already happened, believe it or not. This has already happened. All we're doing right now is just undoing this big messy story and taking it back to peace, bringing it back to beauty. And it's all coming back to the heart. It is really going to a good place. You've got to trust in that. This is a much, much bigger story than what you can believe, what you're seeing. It's just you've got to trust in that and know that it is galactic what's going down right now. And it's hold on with your fingernails and everything else like that. And for me, it's a massive thing to see. It's a massive burden to see right now, and to see these big things. But isn't it ironic that all the stuff that's coming out about Comet or Atlas 3I, it's got virtually the same mass, the same trajectory. It's coming in on the same horizontal as I'm showing you in my models, exactly the same, except that I think maybe they're showing it going in the opposite direction to the direction the Earth's going. But you know, they're showing an object that looks very much like the dwarf planet that well, it can be multiple things, but it's much closer to us, and it's concealed through all sorts of technologies, and we've seen that, you know, as I've shown many times. You know, on October the 16th, 2017, just before the epic shot of the dwarf planet and the shot that I'd predicted, that were all just sensational shots. On that shot, on the Jeff Pecourt on the 14th of October 2016, and this massive plasma blast appears between this stripy planet and what I'm of mind is Mars, because Mars was right where in that position at that time, and then suddenly this big thing suddenly appears unconcealed, and then everything kind of corrects itself and everything goes dark again. But the plasma blast caused the systems to fail, and that was caught on a webcam. And that's the object that I'm of mind that we know we've got a close passage of that, because it's been going around our sun now for many years. It's been doing these rotations for a very, very long time, ever since right since 1939, in the days of Carlos Ferrada. This is Jupiter doing the most incredible thing. You know, it's not, when it's disappearing out of view and you're thinking it's on the opposite side of the sun. It hasn't been on the opposite side of the sun. It's been coming much closer, but over the top or underneath the sun, and now it's coming coming in on the ecliptic plane itself. So it's coming into this it's just, that's what we're coming up into in November. So, and you know, it makes me shiver just to think about it, because you can feel all the tension coming up. Everything I wrote about in my book, Laughing Gas, Britain being used as the Trojan horse to break up the European alliance and feed Europe into a war against Russia, just so it can start the Holy Crusade in the Middle East, charged with the very things. And what I really want the cherry on the cake, and where I'm going to let this go, is it might seem that my country is evil, my country is low, my country is at the centre of this, even though when I'm up in the boat I can hear the bombs going off as they train the military that are going off to fight in Ukraine. The whole thing feels like England's been in the centre of this whole thing with some of this big dark agenda. But the reason why it's happening in Britain is not because Britain is dark, it's because Britain sat at the point when the Spanish Armada came in, and the Roman Catholics were gonna kind of destroy the Protestant movement in Britain and begin the Spanish Inquisition across Britain, and the fleet was just blown away with the wind in a massive storm. And so sorry, the light's fading, so I'm going to have to shut down now. But Britain was where we defied it, like they did in the south of France, you know, in the times where the kind of like the Cathars and there was a big feminine movement there as well at the same time as the Cathars. In Britain at the time we defied that Catholic rule and took a stand against it, and miracles happened. And because we defied that, this is the reason why this is sitting on being all done from Britain. It's because we were the ones that needed to be suppressed the most, because we were the most likely to revolt, because we revolted before, because it's in our blood all the way from the peasants' revolt. It's an endless, in our history we think about the English Civil War being the English Civil War, but you go back to, like I say, 1381, the Peasants' Revolt, or you go back before that, the Battle of Democracy, 1264. These are endless battles where we've constantly fought up against those that try to kind of take more than the people are willing to give. And there's a point, and so that's why Britain was chosen as to suppress that and to utilize that in this invasive force, and to try and turn this. But so we have to remember who we are in this country, in England, and what we're really rooted. Why they came here. That's what I said in Laughing Gas. That Tony Blair was trying to reverse that. He'd become Catholic. He was reversing this. He was bringing in the Spanish Inquisition when he was at the very beginning of this, starting the Iraq wars and the big story that's gone on there. The Holy Crusade that invites you into hating Muslims, and this whole incitement and this massive issue of just endlessly attacking these Muslim countries, and then creating this carnage, and then so we've got to wage peace through this thing and really try and take the high ground at every point, and just try. I haven't got this. These models aren't correct. You can see I've made so many errors in them, but I'm desperately trying to link the dots for you guys so you can kind of picture this. But it seems it's all coming together. The astronomical community is also hoping there's going to be an after this, and they've got to come up with a kind of their name for it. And so right now they're calling this object here that you see plasma charging, that we've seen so many shots of in 2018 May when it was massive. We were like calling it, why is Jupiter so massive in May 2018, when we were getting the first long duration volcano happening May the 4th 2018. And since then, we've just been inundated with long-duration volcanoes. We've beaten all the records that have ever been recorded of long-duration volcanoes. Even to the days of Galileo, we've never known volcanoes go off longer than the Icelandic volcano in the latter part of 2021. It went off for like more than 6 months constantly. We've seen all the biggest times, the biggest storms, the biggest earthquakes, the biggest volcanoes. It's all redlining. Everything is redlining on the map. We don't know what to look at, where to go. So we have to come back to that inner peace and know that we are a divine. None of this is human karma, believe it or not. It's all a big story that's coming through humanity. Humanity is just the paintbrush that is through which this massive canvas is kind of painted. So we are not the enemy here. We will get through this, and there will be a whole new cycle after this. We're coming to a big awakening. You've got to trust in that, but we've got some big things coming in, and if I'm honest with you, a plasma bolt is what they're really most worried about. That's really what it's all about. What's coming in and what the effect it will have on this planet if we had a plasma bolt, and what systems might go down. All the love in the world, honey in the heart. Please help and assist if you can. PayPal links in the description. I'm not expecting much right now because I'm just feeling I'm not getting any views on the channel and it's kind of over. It's if it's censorship, I don't know what it is, or maybe you've just had enough of this now and you've just seen enough, you can't look at it anymore. I feel the same, but I also know that I don't want to get to the other side and regret not doing all the things that I knew I had to do. And so onwards and upwards, and that's keep our focus, keep looking at it. And remember, those who can see it, those who sail closest to the wind, probably know most about it, are probably masters of it. And so, just watch the moon, watch the cycles, see the sights, just pay attention, just be logical with what's going on right now. Think about the moon. Think about the sightings, the sky watchers. Stay up to date. Watch the boys. Watch the kind of like, you know, the water level buoys, and just look for anomalies and things going into event mode, and just keep a general eye out, and that's all you can do really. And you know, if there's going to be a lot of rain, there's going to be a lot of craziness, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to happen. You know, anyway, I'm actually going to leave it there. You know, because there can always be different stories and always different variations of how this can go. And truly, I don't know. I'm just desperately trying to charter it, because one day we're going to put it all into one big flowing motion. And then I promise you, it will give us all cascades. We'll be able to connect so many other dots when you see these models corrected. With all of these errors that we've had so far, we'll have the first view of this whole model that anyone who's had for 1800 years since this last came around. Since, you know, going back 1800 years when I built this model, you know, where it starts, 262, 3 days of darkness, earthquakes all across Asia, all across Africa, all across Europe, the downfall of the Roman Empire, where they flee Rome and they go to Constantinople and they reform as the Roman Catholic Church. And through a religious-based control rather than just brutal control, it was a new modus operandi in the forms of enslavement and control. And we're right at that same point now, 1800 years later, almost exactly, to that last big cycle. When you go back another cycle, and then you've gone back exactly 3,600 years, and you can start seeing how these big cycles work, that these cycles fit totally into the 3,600 year. I found 262, the earthquake, by using this model, and you'll even see the video about that when I made it, where a miracle has just occurred, and I was thinking it was 274, and I couldn't find the 3 days of darkness, the point where the big event. I knew it was around there, and then I realized I was one cycle of Jupiter out, and I minused one cycle of Jupiter from 274 and looked at 262 in the Edinburgh Encyclopedia, an old one that couldn't be messed around with by Google. There it was. 3 days of darkness, downfall of the Roman Empire, the plagues, the famines, everything came in after that. And we're right at that same point, these big cyclic points. It's not the end of the world, it's just, if you like, it's when the cleaners come in, sort everything out, and set it all off for the next cycle. Sorry about talking in the dark. Honey in the heart, 1,000 thank yous. Until next time, thank you. Bye-bye.